Let's quickly revise about the pernicious anemia. So what do we have? We have the autoantibodies against whom? Against the intrinsic factors. So there are two types, type 1 and type 2. Then the autoantibodies also attack on the parietal cells, which are responsible to produce the intrinsic factor which binds to the vitamin B12 and gets absorbed into the ileum. Because of this, there is damage in the parietal cells and there is less secretion of the hydrochloric acid. Due to this, there is diffuse chronic atrophic gastritis. Then we also have the atrophic glossitis, smooth beefy tongue appearance. In the peripheral blood picture, what do we have? We have macroovelocytes RBC, hypersegmented neutrophils and increased MCV. So the cells are big, huge cells. Okay, hence they are called as macrocytic anemia. Why? Because we do not have the intrinsic factor. If there is no intrinsic factor, vitamin B12 won't be absorbed into the intestine and there won't be utilization of the folic acid, which at the end ultimately will cause decrease in the DNA synthesis, which is essential for the production of the mature RBCs and other components of the blood. And as it is autoimmune disease, the antibodies are against the parietal cells, which causes diffuse gastritis, and there is intestinal metaplasia in the stomach. That means the cells of the stomach are getting transformed into some kind of intestinal cells. Then spinal cord demyelination of dorsal and lateral tracts because of the deficiency of the vitamin B12 causing peripheral neuropathy. So there is dorsal tract ataxia and lateral tract spastic paralysis. So the gait of the person will be not stable. In the bone marrow, we have the marked hypercellular megaloblastic erythropoiesis and giant metamyelocytes and the band forms. Now let's talk about the peripheral blood pictures. As you can see in the peripheral blood picture, we can see there is huge ovelocytes. The RBCs are huge and there is hypersegmented neutrophils. So the number of lobes in the neutrophils is more than 5, 6 or 7. And this picture is about the bone marrow. So there is hypercellular bone marrow with big nucleus inside that. There we can find many metamyelocytes and band forms. And this is the picture. As you can see, there is marrow fat and then there is hypersegmented neutrophils, and these are all the megaloblasts showing different stages. Let's quickly talk about the etiopathogenesis. So first, in etiology, we have the dietary deficiency. If the person is not intaking any sufficient vitamin B12, then there is autoimmune mechanism. If the autoantibodies are targeting the parietal cells, which are responsible to produce intrinsic factor and at the end to absorb the vitamin B12. Vitamin B12 bind to intrinsic factor produced by the parietal cells, and this complex is absorbed in the ileum. But this is not happening in case of pernicious anemia. And in the pernicious anemia, the autoimmune destruction of the parietal cells reduce intrinsic factor, and then there is defective DNA synthesis, due to which there is megaloblastic anemia. Consequences: ineffective erythropoiesis, macrocytosis and pancytopenia. Neurological symptoms like peripheral neuropathy. And this is what is given in the book. So that was the quick revision.